Yep, I hear you great.
Okay, hopefully dog won't bark too much. You guys won't see all of my notifications. And we can get started. Janae, do you want to get us started?
This catch up here.
Sorry, my mind's flipping between 1,000 things. So welcome everybody to Community Open Hour. Can you guys hear me okay? Awesome.
Yep, you're good.
Thank you. All right, well, we're excited. We have some cool things to go over. And I just want to shout out before we get started that the New Stack put out a podcast yesterday about Salt Open and the future of Salt Open. So if anyone listens to the New Stack and wants to hear me and Tom talk about how super great our community is and our focus, we basically just talked about how the future of VMware is very supportive of community and how we have a lot of really awesome plans for the community going forward. So it was a fun podcast and great to get that focus and remind everyone how important community is and that, you know, it's not going anywhere and it's actually going to be growing. And we're super excited about 2021 and the plans that we have. So for this week, as always, we'll talk about, you know, all the requests, concerns, priorities. We have a few things to go over. So we have some general updates. Sage, do you want to talk about the bug fix release?
Yeah, we'll talk about the point release and then of course the docs clinics and the existing SEPs. So just to start, the bug fix release, the point release, these are to the CVE releases. We did get this in the latest 3002.2, but we'll need to go put this in 3001 and 3000 in 2019. That date is December 16th. We felt that this was critical enough that we needed to do a bug fix release. And so that's what we've done. Megan's actually been working on this the most. If you, Megan, you want to give us a brief technical overview?
Sure, yeah. So the changes impacted Salt SSH when using TTY, and I'm blanking on the other one.
The key.
Oh, when generating the keys with SSH, if you use the key that Salt SSH generates, there's issues there as well.
Yeah, so any questions about that?
Issues with the key, is that like security issues or is that just some functional issue?
No, it just does not generate the key correctly.
When it generates the key, it sets a password. It's supposed to not set a password, and it was setting a password of open and close quotes.
Cool, thanks.
Yeah, and another update is just the overlap in the community calendars. We do have the new calendar out there that is the Outlook calendar. We'll keep that Google community calendar for a little while, probably just through December, and then switch over. You'll see that the Zoom links have changed and try to get those out. There's some changes with that, so we'll just make sure to keep people informed. If there's questions, please reach out to me. Please reach out to Janae or anybody on the core team and ask us questions because we want to make sure that that's smooth. And hopefully we're getting the word out about that, the change in that calendar.
Posted this in the Slack, but they're on the community page. I think some of the links are outdated, so we need to make sure those get updated. But just, I guess, for information of anybody, for anybody who's listening, if you send someone there, then they'll have a wrong link. I think there's still the Salt Stack Zoom links instead of VMware.
The community website that has a list this week has the wrong Zoom links. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, I think so. I posted a link in our internal Slack, so
Okay.
you can go there and figure out, see which ones it is.
Yeah, I realized there were some problems with that on Sunday night, and so I don't think I got everything fixed before that email probably went out. So I apologize about that, but that should be fixed going forward because they should be fixed on both calendars. Have the correct. So whichever calendar you're using for the month of December, you should have the same Zoom link. But yeah, the community page might not be exactly right. We can fix that. Back to you, Janae.
Awesome, thanks. So we do have our docs clinic later today. And Stage, I'm glad you talked about the calendar because that's really critical. Really, I want to emphasize if anyone has questions about the calendar or access with the calendar, please reach out so we can get you connected and make sure that you're in the loop on everything happening. So we do have the docs clinic today, which is on the calendar, and it switches every other week with the working group or the clinic. So this week's the clinic. And then that we have a link here to those agendas and meeting notes if you want to catch up.
Yeah, and the clinic we're just going to stream, so it'll just be on Twitch for now. We don't have it set up to do the integration between Zoom and Twitch, so we'll just do Twitch for now until we get that rectified. And that is in the meeting, so it'll just take you to Twitch right now, whatever calendar you go to.
Yep. Perfect. And then the next one. Awesome. So SEPs, we have several current ones. And of course, we want to hear from you. So if you have a suggestion for how we can enhance SALT, how we can improve the community, how we can adjust things, we want to hear from you. So please submit something. Meanwhile, we're going to be working through, of course, what we have. So looking these over, the main one on here is creating this community advisory board. And so we're looking at, trying to put that together the beginning of the new year. And of course, also making some adjustments to this process so that you all feel connected and very much in the know of the changes we're making and what we're doing. So we're excited about that. And so watch Slack for updates and announcements around how we'll be tweaking and adding more transparency to this process. And if you have any questions or interests in being part of a community advisory board, reach out to me. We'll be putting that together, like I said, at the beginning of the new year. So does anyone have questions or thoughts or concerns around the SEPs that you see listed here or the process of submitting one? Awesome.
Just one, I guess, general point of discussion. Alyssa had posted a link a couple of days ago about, I think it was the IETF and generating what they called a rough consensus. So one of the ideas is not that we're trying to, like, at least from this IETF one, it's not that they're trying to generate a complete agreement from everybody, but it's more of a is there anybody who cannot live with this approach style of I guess approval? And I think that's generally speaking, really what we're going for with the SEPs is, the goal isn't to get everybody 100% happy, but to make sure that there's nothing that somebody just can't live with because we've broken everything under the sun or something for them.
Right, or we haven't thought of some sort of use case, depending on what the SEP is.
Yeah.
One of the reasons that we want to hear from the comments, I think, is because it's two heads are better than one, and so that we get more ideas and how people are using it and what it might affect in ways that we hadn't thought. But it is, I agree with that. We're trying to get a general or a rough consensus between people and make compromises on all sides, right? It's probably never going to be perfect for everyone. No such thing.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And the goal isn't, again, to be perfect, but it's to hear people, because those community members, you guys are the ones that are in it that we don't have a top-down approach to community. It's very collaborative. We want to hear you. We want you reflected in every facet of the community. So this is the whole point, is to hear you. So
yeah, this was our means of asynchronous communication on this. I think it's a good way to go here so that we capture a lot. Although I think we get bogged down with reading through all of it. I know I do sometimes. I can't always keep up with all the comments. So it's good and it's also difficult at times, but I think that it is the best approach so far. But of course, we're also looking for, if you see something glaring in the process, let us know, because this is new, and of course we want to make it better over time. And that's kind of how we work, is iteratively. So take that feedback at any point.
If we're looking for sort of a rough consensus, rather than just having a sort of process where we get, comments and then more comments and, possibly a bit of bike shedding, which obviously always happens as well. Is there some way we can almost just do a poll and essentially go, are there any serious objections to this? Are people generally in favor? Are people very much against?
yeah, one example on a smaller scale, well, depending on your perspective. So, and I was going to save this for later, but I'll go ahead and tell you guys, we are coming out with a new design for SALT project. So we have a logo that is just specifically for SALT Open and color palette. And we're really excited about it, but I want to put it out to the community and see what you guys think of it and get feedback. And so, again, we're not talking about, like packaging SALT with Tiamat and stuff like that. This is, this is a design and more branding thing for the community, but I plan to put that out and kind of get people's feedback. And I think a poll would be a great idea, Barney, to, say, hey, what do you guys think? And fill out, a poll on opinions about the brand and see if we want to make adjustments to it before we finalize it. So
yeah, soliciting feedback is always good. I think that's what we're trying to do on several formats. And in the past, we've used forums, or we've used polls, or we've used in Slack. And I don't know that we're actually hitting everyone with any one of those platforms, but trying to garner them on all of them. So I think that's great, though. We want to give people a place to be heard.
yeah, and polls, it's a great way to do that.
Yeah.
Barney, did you mean more generally getting people's polled opinions like in Slack, or do you mean within the SEP process, having people upvote how important the SEP is?
Yeah, I actually meant within the SEP process, especially where, there can be quite a lot of discussion and it doesn't reach any sort of obvious conclusion. And if we want to make progress and not just end up in a cycle of sort of ongoing discussion, then I guess the idea of saying, are there any major blockers? Is there anything that's absolutely, going to cause people huge issues? And if not, can we just get a general consensus by essentially voting on this?
And I think that's what using it as a PR in the approval process through the PR is supposed to be kind of the vote, but maybe we need to make that more obvious and maybe do it differently. I'm not sure. Because it does seem like each SEP is so different, and some of them have so many different components that we may want to do that within the SEP on certain pieces of it, and it may be more just on the whole, kind of depending, or both. And but I like that idea, and it was my understanding that that's how we were using that PR process is not necessarily like a deep dive of a code review, but to say I'm generally in favor of this. So I was putting my approval on it. Do I have that right, Wayne? Am I off my rocker?
Yeah, no, that's pretty accurate. I think one of the challenges perhaps is that as we defined our SEP process, we didn't really provide a way to, I'm not sure if constructively disagree is right, but basically the process as it stands, as we created it, was, hey, this is how things get approved. And that was kind of the general idea, is that things would normally get approved and merged in. We didn't really say, okay, what if there's just a really horrible idea that, or an idea that nobody likes, or whatever it is, how do we, how do we address that? And so I think that's really just the challenges. We haven't put that part of the process through it, and so it's more just things kind of live in limbo, and we haven't really solidified the process to say either yes, this needs to go in and get merged, or no, this is abandoned, or whatever type of other
Right.
result.
Yeah, and this is where Janae and I'd been talking about the process, and I think, Mark, you're also saying, like many SALT users don't have the visibility into the SEPs in GitHub. And I do think that that's actually really important. And I've thought about that as well. And it was kind of one of my points as I was, I don't know if I even brought this up with you, Janae, but I meant to we put it into a channel in Slack, and that still seems very hidden, that I think that it probably needs to be maybe in the mailing groups. I'm not really sure, but I think it needs to be exposed more. What's going on in the SEPs. I don't know exactly how to do that. I'm open to ideas, but I agree with what you're saying. There's benefit of making such polls more wider in scope so that more people could have that visibility.
And I would love to, maybe Mark, if you want to elaborate, what the issue is it that people aren't spending time on GitHub, or is it that they're just not seeing the link for it as widely, or I'd love to hear more about maybe why that's not a wider scope. Because we can.
Sorry, Janae, I thought you were done.
Go ahead.
I was going to say that I think that it depends on how you're using SALT. Like if you're developing SALT, you're going to be really familiar with GitHub. You're probably going to be seeing those. You're going to be in the Slack channel. But if you're a user, that may be a little more hidden, and that's true. And I think you're totally right, Mark. So I'm not sure exactly how to make that more visible. But I think that we do need to.
Yep. That's a great point, Mark, that SALT users they're not developing and may not use GitHub at all. Thanks for putting that in the chat. We can definitely address that and just be more widespread with maybe our Slack posts, or like Sage said, in the Google group, or yeah. And I'm really glad you brought this up. We'll definitely include that as we look at the process and how we're communicating.
Yeah, or maybe it needs its own RSS feed, or
I was going to say, one idea is, actually, I think GitHub does provide an RSS feed for pull request things. But the other suggestion I was going to say is that as we put out like a weekly what's happening post, as we've been doing for like the SALT users and on the blog and things, that may be a thing to just list, okay, here are the new SEPs this week, here are the ones that have been approved, and all that, just to give people a heads up, because that might be, I think largely that's the case. Is everybody has like their own form of absorbing information, and they're
Yeah.
all different. So we just need to be able to I think meet people where they're at and say, and just kind of direct them to certain places, and then that way they can just build that into their workflow as it makes sense for them. But as long as we have I think a consistent place to put information that people can easily access, that's if you can't get to it with curl, then it's probably not in the right place.
I think that there's a lot of things we can do there, and that the weekly what's happening does have it, but it's kind of vague. And I like that idea of maybe doing more detail of like, this is where each one is in the process, or those that are being approved, or whatever kind of. I think that's a good idea.
Do people feel that the weekly what's happenings are being widespread enough and shared enough, and is highlighting it maybe within that a good solution? In Slack, it's perfect. Thanks, Mark. Yeah, because we share that across all of them. So if we can, like Sage said, emphasize that more, we could potentially also, do something embedded into the community website or something like that. So this is really great feedback, and I really appreciate it.
Yeah, and I think it's part of that, like linking back and forth between all the different communication platforms. And so the community pages, maybe also linking back to that more in a more visible way, I guess. I'll think about that a little bit. I think there's like a lot of different ways to do that. So I'm not sure exactly which one I'm going to do first, but maybe all of them. And I probably don't have them all. So I'll take some feedback on that if anybody has it. I'll start doing that.
And Elisa, we have a question in the chat if there's a Slack channel for SEPs, and there is, and I just added you to it. And thanks, Mark, for calling that out too. So yeah, if people do want to follow the SEPs in Slack beyond just the announcements channel, there is a specific channel, simply SEP. That's the channel.
Yeah, and I think we have a couple of SEPs we're working on that need to be drafted and then put in as PRs that aren't on this list. And that is happening, albeit slowly. There's been a lot going on. So I think I have 2 on my list if other people have some as well. I have not forgotten. I just simply haven't gotten to it yet. Likewise with Barney, I know you want to start a new working group, and we did some work on that, and I haven't even had time to follow up. I'm sure you've been busy too. So
yeah, likewise. Yeah.
Yeah, we're still interested in all those things. Haven't forgotten, just still on my list.
Yeah. I think we've all been pretty inundated. So
Yes.
I know we're all not used to Sage being anything less than perfect, but sometimes humanity happens. And she's at
Most days.
10%.
It's true.
Wayne, I like your comment about making a habit of sharing from the SEP channel to the general channel. I think it is good to call those things out to pull people over to those more niche channels. So to do that and even call out that channel in the what's happening next week, maybe.
Yeah, I will say that I saw on a subreddit that someone didn't even realize that we had a community Slack for SALT. And I thought that was very interesting because I feel like it's been heavily promoted. It was started a long time ago. And so I feel like that's visible, but obviously it's not. And so I think that's also an interesting piece there about how we're getting information to users and to developers and to those hybrid people that are developers and users. That there's Slack channels, that there's mailing lists, that there's, tutorials and documentation and a community website and there's actually lots more coming. Janae is working on some things that are really, really exciting that I think she's going to go over in a few minutes. And I think we're going to have more visibility, but we're at a funny impasse. And so it was interesting information to me to hear that somebody didn't realize we had a community Slack channel at all. And I thought I really should be putting that out there in more ways than I'm even considering.
Well, and part of that is just them being one of today's lucky 10K, right?
Exactly. Yes.
And also in the New Stack podcast that I mentioned at the beginning of the open hour, that is the link that sorry, not in the New Stack podcast, but in the Hacks podcast. The community is just getting all kinds of coverage. So the Hacks podcast this last week was also on open hour, and what a lot of companies not open hour, about open community, and what a lot of companies don't understand about having an open source project. And so the links for the Hacks promotions were to promote the Slack community, the community Slack. So if you see a few new people pop in this week, they may be coming to us from the Hacks promotion. So let's keep an eye out for them and say hello. So. Anything else on SEPs? Awesome.
Yeah, we can move to the general Q&A, but also, Janae, if you have some stuff you want to go over that I didn't capture in these slides, please feel free to do that here.
Yeah, so man, we have a lot of really exciting things coming up next year, and I can't go over all of them just yet, but I just want to highlight and emphasize to everyone that the community is absolutely going to be growing, and we'll be building and improving what we have. And so really, if you have thoughts or ideas about things coming up, like now is really the time, because I'm building out a roadmap for next year, and I would love to hear from you if you have thoughts on what I can include. And additionally, we are, bringing meetups back. And so that will be, of course, virtual for the bulk of next year, fingers crossed going to in-person in the fall. But if you have, a topic or something that you would like to speak on, do not hesitate to reach out to me. I would love to set you up with, speaking at a virtual meetup or presenting in some way. We absolutely want to highlight our community members and give you guys ample opportunity to speak and to share and to talk about SALT. So if you would like to do that, if you're new to speaking, if you're experienced with speaking, it doesn't matter. Come talk to me. If you're new and you just want to ease in, you can just do 5 minutes as part of a meetup or support someone else. So there's a lot of options. It doesn't have to be this overwhelming large scale presentation. We'd love to get, help you get your feet in the water on that. So definitely reach out to me if you'd like to speak on SALT, or if you just have thoughts on what the roadmap for the community could and should include next year. Now is the time. So we're going to be doing a lot of exciting things. And I'm hopeful that we can show you guys the new branding in the next week or two. It'll definitely be the next week or two, hopefully next week, but it'll be before the Christmas break. So I'm excited to show you guys and get your feedback and see if there's any tweaks we should make. Mark is saying you'd love to see the community website used more for a concise summary, as well as links to further details. And I'm so glad you said that, Mark. We're in the process of making some changes to the community website. And I agree with you very much that I would like the community site used a lot more, and not just to be kind of a place to house old things, but to be very vibrant and dynamic and active, with having, of course, updated information, all the links. I would really like it to be a source of truth, if you will, for the community, like the place to go. Of course, Slack is, an excellent place to engage and to get information, but is a point of reference for having, a master reference for anything going on. Absolutely. We want the website to be that for everyone. So I'm glad to hear that from you. I'm glad we're on the same page.
Yeah, Slack is definitely ephemeral. IRC is as well to some extent.
Yeah, and so is GitHub. We were using GitHub like wiki pages in an interim while we had some changes that we were making before we knew about the transition and the merger. And then as that unfolded, that also created sort of a, I don't want to say a roadblock, that's not really fair, but sort of it slowed things down. So we actually are gaining a lot from it, but it changed our course a little bit and how we were going to use the community website. And that's also really exciting because we're gaining a lot from that. But it made us a little slower because we weren't going in that direction at that time. So we were like, oh, we got to pivot again. Okay, well, that's cool. Let's do that.
Give us a detour.
Yeah, detour is a good way. Yeah, let's call it that. And but it is exciting. So I think it's been a little bit slow to get that up and running and to be more visible and be that like source of truth where we want to send everybody first and then it has everything there. But we are on board with that. We want to do that. We are excited to make that happen. And it's just been a little slower than we'd hoped.
Yes, but it's in progress. So this is a really exciting time for a community. I just feel like there's a lot of things in process, in flux, like kind of, I just feel this sense of being on the brink, and it's exciting. So
it is, it's really exciting. And I think that we're going to see a lot more just visibility and communication platforms and communication coming out and some more automation around that. And we're going to be able to focus there to make that easier to do. And I think that's going to help a lot. And that's something that we've really been striving for. And so I think we're going to see that come to fruition. It's just taking a little longer than I thought.
Always does, right? Good things come to those who wait. Right here, I don't know.
But really great suggestions. I'm glad to hear that from people. Anything else?
Anything else you'd like to see happen next year? What's your pie in the sky thing that would be really cool for SALT community? We've got a handful of things on our radar, anywhere from reviving meetups to updating the tutorial docs to planning an unbelievable SALT Conf 21. We've got a lot of things on the radar. So we want to hear all your thoughts. And the captions are saying stop Conf 21, and that's just not acceptable. So SALT Conf 21. Maybe. Dang. All right.
Really close. SALT, CONF.
Dang, Spice, huh?
Well, I tried. That was terrible. I'll make sure to get that in the notes. Any word on MDM for Android and Apple? I don't know that I have any visibility there at all.
I'm not sure.
There was some people from the Mac working group that were working on some proxy modules to work with MDM. I don't know if the status of that. I think their focus shifted to support for Big Sur and whatever the version was before. Not Big Sister, Big Sur. Okay, whatever. The focus was like getting SALT supported on those releases. So I think the next working group meeting for the Mac OS group, we can follow up with them and see what the status is.
Yeah, but Andrew, did you have something specific you're looking for on an MDM for Android or Apple? Or
At this moment, I would like to be able to manage, mobile devices as easily as I can, endpoints. And I know that Apple is very difficult to get anything onto. And so maybe this is just me being new but not knowing enough. But it seemed when I went looking through some of the modules that there was not the same level of support for, Mac and it seemed maybe, and I, probably misunderstood, but I didn't see the same level of support for Android devices as I did necessarily for standard, Windows and Mac and Linux machines. So, yeah, I'm probably exposing myself as an extremely new member of this, community as well, and that's fine.
I don't know if that's the case necessarily. I think that you're diving into something that's just a really niche portion of a module that probably just hasn't had a lot of exposure yet, and probably would if it had some attention. So I think that's a good point.
Yeah, with that said, we don't really have support for Android at all, or for mobile devices. That hasn't really been a focus. Now, I mean, we've got a lot of support for for Apple laptops, and things of that nature outside of a lot of our core use cases, which is Linux and Windows. But yeah, Salt hasn't been used in an aggressive way on things like phones, for instance.
One of the things I remember from the conversation last week or last month when we did briefly talk about MDM support in the Mac OS working group was kind of a rethink of how it would work, how it would look. Previously, it was thought of like I said, there would be a proxy module or proxy minion that would talk to the individual devices, and their thoughts were, rather than doing that, it would make more sense to kind of interact with an MDM service specifically. So like Salt would interact with the MDM service, and then the MDM service would not assault. I don't know where this is getting this from. I didn't even say underwear. Oh man. Okay. Just gonna ignore the closed caption. So yeah, anyway, the Salt would interact with the MDM service, and the MDM service would interact with the devices specifically. No one's actually done that yet, but that was kind of the general idea. So I don't know if that fits in like what you were thinking, Andrew.
Yeah, so I'm right now, I have just noticed that there was not as much, module support, and it's not a requirement for me today or even in the next year to tackle phones and mobile devices. It would be something that if I could add it would be quite a feather in my cap. And, so I'm basically asking some of my most intro questions and trying to root for some intro information. And I don't have specific technical plans on how I would approach this even yet. So if the current plan is set up an MDM device, but I would then research how to do that.
Yeah,
Thank you very much, by the way.
Yeah, we can keep you informed there on what that working group is looking at, because I think they have a real need to do something there and they're interested. So maybe just getting you in touch with what they're thinking, because they're still in just idea phase 2.
Yeah, because I'd really like to be able to do everything under one hood and not have to bring in a secondary service and then learn a secondary kind of language to do what I can already do in Salt. But I know I'm not the first person to think this either.
Yeah, I hear you. Yeah, the closed captioning's not perfect, but it's better than no closed captioning. I'll say that, and it's definitely
Brings us
laugh.
joy.
I mean, I'm not upset about the entertainment today, so.
It's made my day. Any other questions? These are good. I guess we can always adjourn early, which, you know, I love giving people time back in their day, especially myself.
Right?
Yes.
You can always use a little time. And I'm looking at the chat here, and I don't want to break any hearts, but there's not technically a snail or turtle in the new branding. I mean, I'm sure
For that S.
I feel like you could look at it and perceive a snail. So it's really it's your choice artistically how you choose to see it.
So the
This is for the best.
I can't remember if somebody's shared this one before, but you know, this snail gets beaten up by a turtle, and you know, when the police come and they start questioning him, they're like, "So can you tell us what happened?" Because I don't know. It all happened so fast.
That's funny. Gareth, we will not be giving out assault underwear as SaltConf 2021 swag, but that's a fun idea.
Need some molly straps and
I think there's a t-shirt to be had though. Snail and
The snail t-shirt to be had.
some assault underwear on that snail.
What would that sourcing conversation even look like with the swag company ads? I don't know.
So tell me, what do you know about snails? Oh, that would be hilarious.
T-shirt with the closed captioning mistakes would be hilarious.
That's so funny. That reminds me of the Tom Tumbler that we're getting in with all Tom's quotes, like a t-shirt with just all the closed captioning mistakes on it. It'd be so funny. Mark, I love that.
It's a great idea. I think it would be awesome.
I might start jotting down some notes and design ideas because that's fantastic. No one would understand it. It would be great.
Except for the people that watch this podcast or this video cast every week, right? Like it's on YouTube. Go look at it. It's out there. It's gonna be great.
It would be kind of hilarious to just see like a translation or something. So it's like the actual words that somebody said, and then what the the translation was instead.
Yeah.
And so SaltConf 21 would be Salt Camp 21.
That's right.
Writer cell count 21. Hey, that's fun. Writer cell count. This is interesting.
It's fun. Front and back captions. That's a good idea, Mark. So like I don't know if I'm getting this right, but like the front would be what they meant to say, the back would be the mistakes or something like that.
I love it.
That'd be fun. Well, good stuff. Well, we won't keep you all. We'll give you some time back in your Thursday. Thank you guys so much for being here today or for watching after the fact. We love being able to connect with everybody. And if you think of any ideas, reach out to me. I'm on Slack. And you know, we'd love to hear from you and chat with you. Of course, you can reach out to Sage and any member of the open team. And thanks again for being here. Have a great Thursday. Bye.
Thank you.